Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending this meeting of Planning Committee Tuesday, the 15th of June, 2021. Those of you who don't know, I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee. Councillor Hilton is Vice Chair. We have members and officers here in the Lancastrian, as well as some registered speakers. We also have some registered speakers joining remotely, and the meeting is also being streamed live on YouTube. When members want to speak, can you please raise your hand to indicate to me that you want to speak? I'll make a note of it, and I'll invite you to speak. And then you can turn your microphones on. But turn your microphones off when you finish speaking. We're still getting to grips with the new microphones, so we'll get there one day. Please bear with us. Please can all members respect the COVID measures in place for everyone's safety and ensure that all mobile phones are switched off, please. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, it's real. Exit the way you came in. Apologies, none have been received, but Councillor Boardman is joining via Teams, but he will not be able to vote as he's not in the meeting. Apologies, I've none received. Minutes of the meeting Tuesday the 25th of May, pages 3 to 4. Will somebody move those, please? Thanks, Councillor G. Somebody second them. Thanks, Councillor France. Your name went. Everybody in agreement with that? Please show. I think that's everybody. Thank you very much. All in favour. Meetings are approved. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in the agenda. If you have a pecuniary interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before the business starts to be discussed. You do, however, have the same right to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and then leave immediately after. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence a decision on the matter. Planning applications to be determined. There are 6 items to be determined. For the benefit of the public here tonight, speaking arrangements for planning are as follows. Officers will summarise the report. Registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I will grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings and ask you to switch your mobile phones off again. I don't know why that's on my feet. A buzzer will sound at the end of your time. If you haven't finished, you can wind up, but you will be muted if you carry on. With that, we are moving on to item 3A. Prospect House, Winds Lane, pages 5 to 36, with an update on your addendum, although the recommendation remains the same. Ian will present this item. Planning permission is granted subject to conditions. I have 1 registered speaker, the ward councillor, Margaret France. Ian, can you please present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission retrospectively for the remodelling and landscaping of land to the west of Prospect House and east of Winds Lane, Euxton, following the deposition of subsoils. Members will recall that this application was presented to committee on the 25th of May, where a decision was deferred in order to allow members to undertake a site visit, and that site visit was carried out yesterday. The application site is in the Greenbelt and comprises a platform of land that has been created through the deposition of inert materials, resulting in a steeply sloping bank rising upwards from Winds Lane before rising more gently towards Prospect House. Prior to the works having taken place, there was a shallower gradient of grassland with a wilder tree-lined periphery to the west. The reprofiling and remodelling of the land to create a more level platform amounts to engineering operations, which are not inappropriate developments in the Greenbelt, subject to impacts on openness and the purposes of including land within the Greenbelt. Although the land now has the appearance of an engineered operation rather than a more natural profile, the works themselves have resulted in a different landform whereby the land remains visually open and free from development, albeit in a different form. The development would not conflict with any of the purposes of the Greenbelt and does not therefore represent inappropriate development within this Greenbelt location. The reprofiled slope is clearly visible from Winds Lane and appears as a rather stark, unnatural feature, which has been exacerbated following recent works to the trees along Winds Lane, which were carried out as a separate operation to the engineering works. Although the reprofiled slope detracts from the visual appearance and character of Winds Lane, it is considered that this harm could be overcome with an appropriate landscaping scheme, which is recommended is required by condition. A number of residents have raised concerns about the impacts of surface water runoff on their properties. The Lead Local Flood Authority, as advisors to Chorley Council on technical surface water matters, were consulted on the application and have concluded that the development does not increase surface water runoff or alter flood risk at other locations. They note reports of pre-development flooding in this location and are satisfied that this proposal doesn't increase flood risk within the site or elsewhere. There are further concerns regarding the stability of the slope resulting from the material that has been deposited and profiled, and the applicant has demonstrated a specification and method of works with an associated guarantee provided by the contractor. This is considered to provide an adequate level of assurance to enable the application to be determined. All issues are covered in detail within the report, and overall the proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Can everybody hear okay? Yeah. I couldn't hear you then because you didn't use your microphone. I don't know, I couldn't hear very well, but I think it's because I'm online with you rather than...
All right.
But that's okay as long as...
Thanks, Chair.
Right, Councillor France. Would you like to... It's not...
And I'd just like to say thank you for those members of the planning committee who took the trouble to go and have a look at the site yesterday, because I think that... Oops. Shall we try again with that one? Yes, thank you for going to have a look at the site, because I'm sure that you will have realised why the residents nearby are particularly concerned about this. What seems on the face of it to be a small amount of work done to the garden.
Councillor France, can you hang on a minute? We're having a lot of difficulty up here hearing. And you can't hear either, so it's not just us. Okay.
I've got a red light. Is that? Can you hear? A bit closer. I'm sorry, it made that horrible noise when I got it. Shall we try again? Is that better? Okay. Just to recap on what I said last time, basically, I'd like to put on record that personally I don't like this application, and I know that a lot of the residents nearby don't like it. And one of the most important reasons why we don't like it is the fact that all of this work was done without any planning permission whatsoever. That the first that anybody knew about it was when lots of tractors appeared with trailers full of soil. And if the residents are to be believed, they were clocking the amount of tractors and trailers coming day by day, and their estimate of 6,000 tonnes of soil as opposed to the 1,000 that the applicant has stated. Perhaps when you've seen the site and seen the enormity of the changes that have taken place there, you'll have some understanding of that. So I suppose we are where we are with it. The job is done, the work is completed, long before any application was granted, long before any assessment of the biodiversity of the natural habitat was undertaken. So we're now faced with what to do with it. And I feel sorry for you members of the planning committee, because it's very hard to refuse a planning application without very firm evidence in planning law, given that if you were of a mind to refuse it and it went to appeal, the costs are then very high. And that is something that in your role as councillors, you have to take into account and give due consideration to it. But the simple fact is that this is just a flagrant disregard of the planning law. This has been done in such a way so as to allow all of the work to be undertaken before any action could have been taken. And to my mind, it makes a mockery of the planning rules that we have. Accepting this application is almost saying, well, we're giving carte blanche to people, do what you want, we'll worry about it later. And that is really what goes against the grain as far as I'm concerned. We've discussed the implications about water runoff, which is still a big concern to the residents. And personally, I'm not entirely in agreement with the LLFA's report. I think perhaps it's easier to make an assessment sitting in an office and looking at rainfall records than actually coming out and looking at it. But this is what we're faced with. So you must decide, is this application going to be passed or is it not? I'm glad I'm not sitting there making that decision, because I know what I would say, and I know that in the general scheme of things, it might not be the right decision, because large costs then could be lost to this council. So that's it, fair and square. It's your decision, and I think all the arguments have been put forward at the last meeting before this, so I leave it to rest on your shoulders. Thank you.
The sound quality is not good tonight. I found that extremely difficult to hear, and I know other members have difficulties as well. So is there anything we can do to address that, please? I've got Councillor Hilton and Councillor Jacob.
Sorry, we come to a planning meeting open-minded to hear an argument for and against applications. I came here open-minded on this one. I didn't hear a word that was spoken there. So I personally cannot make up my mind because I haven't heard the argument against it. So how do I vote on something that I can't hear? So the way things are, I'm saying that I can't vote because I have not heard the proper argument. We are meant to be open-minded when we come in and make our minds up with the argument. So, sorry.
Yes, well, I was going to say, till we sort it out, we're going to adjourn the meeting for a couple of minutes to try and resolve this issue, because I can't hear. And it's okay.
They were logging and counting the number of vehicles, and they made a rather conservative estimate, counting them as half-loaded trailers. So it's quite a large amount of work to undertake without planning permission, without an ecology report, without a tree survey. And these are all things that one would have expected to have been done long before the work commenced. So we are where we are, but I'd just like to put on record that I'm against this planning application, and I know that the residents who live there nearby are also against it. And the reason for that is largely because of the cavalier way it has been undertaken. It flies in the face of planning law. It shows a complete disregard of all the regulations, and we're now faced with this. Where do we go from here? And this is why I'm grateful that I'm not a member of the planning committee, because I wouldn't like to sit in your seats tonight. I understand that you may find this is a difficult application to refuse, because you have to be cognizant of the rules and regulations, but it's such a flagrant breach of planning policy, this, that to my mind it would be very sad to see it actually given a rubber stamp and allowed to become the new normal. So thank you all for listening to me. I won't go into all the detail because I think we said it all last time about the water runoff and the land stability and all these other things. And I leave it to your good selves to make this decision. And as I say, it's not one I'd be happy to have to make. So thank you for listening to me, and
Let's just hope these houses don't continue to have problems with floodwater. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's over to you now, members. I've got Councillor Hilton has indicated he wants to speak. Is there anyone else? Councillor Heaton, Councillor France. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. I hope everyone can hear me. Obviously, this is a retrospective planning application. I don't intend to repeat my previous comments I made at last month's committee, as I think I made my feelings quite clear on this. The report shows that there is probably no significant detrimental effect on biodiversity and ecology, and it shows that it is unlikely to have any protected species present which could have been affected by this development. We don't know for certain, but we have to take things at face value as they are. In terms of the potential surface water runoff, paragraph 35 states that this development does not increase surface water runoff. Paragraphs 35 and 37 of the report also suggest that there may actually be an improvement to the surface water runoff that could potentially reduce the flood risk to the already affected properties. This is advice from the appointed experts, which are the lead local flood authority. We can only consider this on expert advice, and we have to take it at face value. So for that reason, I'm happy to propose officer recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hilton. Councillor Heaton.
Thank you, Chair. It's a comprehensive report that we have before us, which we went through at the previous meeting. The bit about the conclusion says the proposed development does not represent inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. And I have to agree with that. It is possible to do these things with permission, and it would suggest that if it would come to us before it had been done, the officer's recommendation would have been the same. So I'll second Councillor Hilton's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor.
With the conditions on the report.
Okay. Councillor France.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm disappointed with this application. I mean, obviously, paragraph 12 states that because the work was done without any planning permission and, as previously said, blatant disregard planning authority in the fact that even when there was an enforcement order to try and stop the work, the minute they thought there was a chance at Easter to carry on, they did. Paragraph 31 refers to a landscaping scheme to provide, mitigate the harm in the character of the area. Quite honestly, the way this happened with the area, I doubt that will be done. Paragraph 39, well, paragraph 35 to 39, yeah, Lancashire Flood Authority are the experts, and I agree with Councillor Hilton, but I do think this was done without a site visit, which gives me an element of doubt about that. And then we go down to paragraphs 50, 51 on, really, ecology matters, the land. I mean, I appreciate that's not for us today, but when we went on the site visit, as I went, the land is a garden now. If it was agricultural land, there probably needs to be a separate application coming in for that. It did look quite nice, to be fair, when I looked at it. But no, I will not be supporting this application.
Councillor Whittaker, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. This residence is aptly named Prospect House. It's well named. It's got magnificent views over the Lancashire Plain across to the coast. Of course, it's done following the import of umpteen thousand tonnes of material to assist in the vista. In my view, it's a pity that the applicant had such little regard for the environment as Margaret talked about, it flies in the face of planning regulations, flagrant disregard for people who live nearby. And I have to say, you know, the LCC is quoted as the lead flood authority. They never visited. They weren't allowed to visit. And they've made a statement that I believe that says there's no problem. There's no regard whatsoever for the residents. And there is, people know there's been flooded down there. They might, not the flood from 5 or 6 years ago, but from last winter, there was serious flooding issue. I am not going to support this application. I think it's inappropriate, and I would feel guilty if I did support it. I think it's people riding roughshod over the planning regulations and cocking a snook at them. I haven't even mentioned the demolition of, the cutting down of some magnificent trees, and irony of irony, some plastic leaves that were put on the wall to shield up this bank. It's just ridiculous. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Whittaker. Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. I won't dwell on the flooding. There seems to be no reason to refuse it on those conditions. I did go on the site visit. There's no doubt about it. It's urbanised a rural landscape. And it's a lovely urbanised area, beautiful lawns. It looks terrific from that side. I'll be very proud of it from the applicant side. But as the report says, if you're standing on the outside, it's a stark and unnatural feature. It's a sort of engineering works that when you go alongside it, you expect the reservoir to be on the other side. However, there's not much we can do about it. It's just unfortunate. I really feel that this applicant really could have followed the rules, and it would have been a lot more straightforward and you'd have got a lot more sympathy. As for the condition about appropriate landscape scheme, that's a little ironic to have to put back trees when you've already cut down others on the outside there, which I agree has got nothing to do with this particular planning application, but it is a little ironic. I'd be very interested to see the landscape scheme, because when you look at the cross section demonstrating the method of deposition with all the various layers of reinforcement right through the various layers, right through the whole embankment, there is no way they could actually do anything to put trees in that bank. So they're going to end up, I presume, putting the trees back where they've already cut them down. So all very interesting. It's outrageous, really, but there's unfortunately nothing we can do about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to make a comment?
You're pressing my finger on this button, Chair, for ages. It keeps going out.
Councillor Gray, you didn't listen to the instruction. Indicate you want to speak. I'll tell you when, and then you switch your microphone on.
All right. Oh, right.
I knew somebody would do it. Councillor Gray.
Yeah. No, I'm concerned about this, actually. A lot of people might not know this, but that was the main road between Chorley and Blackburn. And in the 1960s, that road collapsed down towards the canal. Now, with all this extra flooding coming now, what concerns me, all this extra water might weaken that road again at front of where those cottages are, where the flooding's coming. And if that happens, you could even have the cottages collapsing in the canal. And that's what worries me, and I'm going to vote against this.
Sorry, Councillor G.
Thanks, Chair. I was open-minded about this one till I came tonight, and I really was open-minded. But what's changed my mind is when I've seen the photographs of all the trees that have been pulled down and felled. To me, that complete and utter disregard to the environment, the wildlife, to the people on this committee. and it's because of the way they treated the environment around there, the way they cut the tree down. I know it's not our issue. You said it's the Forestry Commission's issue, but because of that, I think I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Ian, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to confirm, yeah, the works that were carried out to the trees were a separate operation to the engineering works and don't form part of the consideration of this application, albeit some of those trees do fall within the application site and some of them are outside. And I also understand that matter is being pursued by the Forestry Commission. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I've heard some councillors speak against this application. Some have said they're going to vote against it, but I've not heard any planning reason to refuse this application. And without a valid planning reason, and if we vote against it, we're going to be taken to appeal and probably cost us a lot of money. So I must just be wary of going against the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, you must get the new teeth. What Councillor Heaton said, that's perfectly right. There's been questions about the extra water washing away. There is no evidence of extra water. The Flood Authority says it's the same amount of water that's coming down there that came before. That's the evidence we have to go on it. The trees, yeah, we don't like it, but it's got nothing to do with this particular application. So unless you can, as been said, you have to come up with the correct planning objections, not just because we don't like it. We know we don't like how it's been gone about, but at the end of the day, those who are against it, can we please have some clear planning objections, please?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have Councillor Beaver, and then I think we're going to have to round up because everybody's had a go. Councillor France, it'll have to be very short.
Thank you, Chair. I was just feeling left out. I'm sure that we would have been reminded that we would have had to put some reasons before we went to the vote. I agree with everything that's been said against this tonight. I don't really see why the trees were cut down, regardless of whether it's part of this plan or not. I disagree with the flood assessment in the same way that we disagree with some of highways. Highways are the experts in that. These are the experts. We just disagree. And I don't see any reason to oppose this, sad as it is. Thank you, Chair.
All I've got to say, really, if we look at paragraph 44, which says, on the basis a landscaping scheme is provided to mitigate the harm to the remaining trees and habitat and loss of trees as a result of the development, the application is considered to comply with policies BE9 and BE10 of the Chorley local plan. That would imply that it isn't at the moment.
I've got a proposal and a seconder that we accept the officer recommendation. I have no other proposals on the table. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please. Right. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, Chaz.
Thank you, Chair. Committee has decided to approve retrospective planning permission with conditions for the remodelling landscaping at Prospect House, Euxton, Winds Lane. Thank you.
Land to the west of number 3 Castle Walks, pages 37, 38, with an update on your agenda. Amy's going to present this item. I've one registered speaker, the applicant, Alison Davidson. Alison, can you hear us?
Sorry, yes, I can.
Sorry?
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Amy, can you present the report, please?
The application proposes a single closed place with access from Yarrow Close. The site is comprised of a large parcel of land situated between the River Yarrow and the houses of Yarrow Close. The land is designated as existing open space and falls within the defined Croston Conservation Area. It is situated within the settlement boundary of Croston and falls within Flood Zone 3. The site is also identified as having archaeological potential in the form of a castle, moat or other fortified structure. The site is currently undeveloped. We have received comments from 19 objectors and one representation of support. The site is designated as open space under Chorley Local Plan Policy HW2. The proposal fails to meet the criteria set out in the policy and would result in the loss of amenity green space in the ward where there is already a deficit. In addition, it is considered that the site contributes significantly to the character of the area due to its location between the River Yarrow and an area of housing. It is situated within the Croston Conservation Area and has a positive role in its character and appearance. There is also a public footpath along the northern boundary to the site and provides visual amenity to people walking along this footpath, including other wider views of the site. In a previous appeal at this site, the inspector dismissed the appeal due to the loss of designated open space. The site is situated within Flood Zone 3, as confirmed by the Environment Agency. Whilst it is considered that the sequential test has passed, the exception test has failed, as it does not deliver wider sustainability benefits to the community. It is considered that the proposal would be harmful to the character and appearance of Croston Conservation Area and the visual amenities of the area. Great weight is attached to this harm, and it is not considered that any public benefits have been identified to outweigh this harm. The site may also hold value relating to a medieval castle and the possibility of the site also being the location of a moated manor home. The presence of a previously unknown defended site in the form of a castle would be considered to be of the highest archaeological significance of national importance. Insufficient information has been submitted to fully understand the impact of the proposed development on archaeological interests, as the land has significant potential as being the possible site of a castle, moat or other fortified structure. In respect of neighbouring residential amenity, ecology and highway safety, it is not considered that any adverse harm would arise or that suitable conditions may be applied. The officer recommendation is that the application is refused due to the loss of protected open space, harm to the character and appearance of Croston Conservation Area and visual amenity of the area, insufficient information to assess the archaeological value of the site, and that the exception test of paragraph 160 of the framework is failed. The reasons are detailed in the report.
Thanks, Amy. Alison, would you like to make your representations now, please?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we submitted our plans in October 2020. However, the recommendation is to refuse our application on 4 points. Point 1 is in terms of visual amenity of the area. We bought the land last year as a much overgrown, derelict field with extensive fly tipping. There was a burnt out caravan, dilapidated trailer, dumped building rubble, etc. The hedge was 20 foot high, totally overgrown, unmaintained and untidy. The whole site was an eyesore. There is no public access to the site, and our proposed house is to the left of the site, so would not obstruct the view from the gate and only cover around 10% of the view through the hedge. Our aim, if successful, is to build a 3-barn style house, but we have no wish to have a formal garden, but adapt the style of an open meadow with flowers, wildflowers. We also plan to plant a small wood to the right of the entrance with indigenous trees to encourage birds and wildlife. So basically our house would be in the middle of the countryside and fitting in the conservation area. But we have the amenities of the village close by, the land would be maintained and visually greatly improved. I would also here like to quote the Heritage Statement in connection with Castle Walk, Croston, August 2020. Point 3.7. The site presents little in the way of evidential value as a long time undeveloped piece of land and contributes little to the evidential setting of the conservation area. Point 4.12, page 25. The conservation area will be preserved and indeed enhanced by the proposal by redeveloping a site that imparts negative value at present, with a development that will enhance the area. Point 2 is also covered in the above. Point 3, I draw attention again to the Heritage Report 3.11. The links to the former castle and moat have long since vanished, and any value will have been diminished, providing low level of historic value. Historic England had no comment to make on this site. However, studying the old maps, the unconfirmed castle site appears to be behind the bungalows 2 and 3 Castle Walk, and there was no mention of this in the planning reports for extensions, garages, etc. in previous years. Point 4, Flood Zone 3. In the report from the Environment Agency dated 13th of May 2021, after we had taken on board previous recommendations, they have stated, we therefore consider the proposed mitigation appropriate, paragraph 6. Paragraph 7, we are satisfied that the development would be safe without exacerbating flood risks elsewhere if the proposed flood risk mitigation measures are implemented. We would, of course, ensure that all recommendations are followed in detail. I cannot emphasise enough how passionate my family are about this project, and if we are successful, we can guarantee that the area will be greatly improved by our efforts. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Over to you, members. Councillor Beaver, Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd support the officer's recommendation. It fails to meet the criteria in paragraph 1. The site may be overgrown, it may be a fly tip, there may be no access, there may be lots of things wrong with it. But let's put it right. Let's get rid of the fly tipping area. Let's make access and let's make this an open space. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. This is a long report. There are 86 paragraphs, and I'm sure members have read them all. I'm speaking, if you like, as a rural champion. I know Croston very well. I'm the chairman of the Twinning Association. I'm chairman of Friends of the River Yarrow. And Croston is a special place. But it shouldn't be contained in aspic, as they say, cooking phrase. I've had calls from both sides about this planning application. And I'm not criticising the planners in any way, shape or form. It's a tough job, but as I've said before in this meeting, if planning was an exact science, we wouldn't need planners and we wouldn't need planning committee. Some of the issues that are talked of, for example, in the report, in the officer's report, flooding issue, we know Croston's been the subject. Chorley Council put £1 million towards a flood barrier further upstream. But the Environment Agency, who were in charge, who were the experts in these matters, have okayed it, as the proposer just said. It's supposed to be a conservation area, and it was not available for members of the public. It's not in public open. It's not public open space in any way, shape, or form. It was scrubland, and one of the reasons that the officers use, and I repeat, I'm not criticising. One of the reasons that they say that this is recommended for refusal is policy HW2, which is protection of open space, sport and recreation. Now, I know what open space, sport and recreation is, but it says land and buildings currently or last used or ancillary to open space for sports and recreation will be protected unless alternative facilities are provided, or it can be demonstrated that the loss of the site would not lead to a deficit of provision, or the site is identified as being of high quality and of high value in the open space study. It's scrubland. It was scrubland. It can be demonstrated that the relation of the site is not required to satisfy a recreational need in the local area. There's tons of local areas around Croston. Croston Moss is about half a mile away. And it talks about the visual appearance. You walk along Castle Walks, there's an 8-foot high hedge. You can't see it. The only way you can see this place is through a gateway where there's going to be the access, if this permission is given, for the residents to go to. That's the only place you can see it. The other side of the Castle Walks, on this 4-foot wide footpath, is a 2-metre high fence belonging to the houses. It doesn't contribute anything to the visual appearance, in my view, and I think this timber-clad building might just do that. But in addition to stuff that we've had today from objectors, I received a copy of an heritage statement from a chap called Ian Rome, which was submitted and I think was alluded to by the officers in the report, but that in itself runs to 28 pages. It's a very, very complicated document, and Croston is a very, very special place. So what I'm going to propose, Chair, is so that we can have a look at all these documentation, including the stuff that we've got today, which purports to show visual attraction and so on from different allocations. What I'm proposing, Chair, is that we defer this item so that members of the Planning Committee can have a proper look at all this documentation that we've got and have a look at the site and try and judge that in relation to the Croston Conservation Area. So I'd like to propose, Chair, if I may, that we defer this item for a site visit so that we can have a look at it and we can come back and discuss it once we've been on the site. Many members will know Croston, many members will not know Croston. So I think it's important we make this decision properly when we're fully aware of all the facts. Thank you, Chair.
Got a few people. Councillor Marwood, Councillor Eden, and then Councillor France. Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal for a site visit, which I don't usually do, but in this case, I do feel I need to see it. Simply because in paragraphs, for example, 22, D, and the answer to that paragraph, the site forms a significant area of amenity green space. Well, it would seem it was a tip before that. But then it goes on to say, however, the site is currently not accessible to the public, so does not serve any recreational need. So you can't get to it. It doesn't seem to serve any purpose, and it seems to be a tip. So I'd like to see it, to see what all this fuss is about, one way or another.
Thank you. Councillor Eden.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I was going to second, obviously, what Councillor Whittaker has said to us this evening. He summed it up very well, as usual, and quite eloquently. I think the applicant, from listening to what she had to say, is going to be very sympathetic to it. I was born in Croston. I still have property there. I don't live there anymore, unfortunately, but I will try to get back there as soon as I can. But it is a special place, as Alan says. This area was very rough. It was very neglected. And I think what the applicant is proposing to do will enhance it more than words can say. So I would like to third, if possible, Councillor Whittaker's suggestion. I think once you come and see it, you'll see how neglected it's been. And I know a lot of work has gone on down there. I do visit the village 2 or 3 times a week, and I do walk down there. And I think it would be a big asset to the village, and it would make the open space look a lot better. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor France.
Thank you, Chair. I notice there are a number of objections here, and I've got to say, I don't know the area. So like Councillor Morwood, I feel I would like to see it before I made my decision. So, yeah, I go along with site visit. Thank you.
Sorry, anybody else? Councillor Gabbard.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second Councillor Beaver's proposal to accept the officer's recommendations. I've listened to what other councillors have said, but the point they seem to make, in my opinion, is just on one part of the recommendation to refuse it. If we look at the recommendations, the officers listed out 4 reasons for refusal, not just this one. So if a site visit does make councillors think, oh yes, number 1 is no longer a reason why to refuse this application, there's a further 3 listed. So again, I'd like to second Councillor Beaver's proposal.
Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. I was also going to second the officer's recommendations. I think they've provided a very comprehensive report about the reasons for refusal for this site, and I can't believe we're sitting here in committee potentially building on a site of the highest architectural significance of national importance. I can't possibly agree to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed obviously there was a proposal for the site visit together with some documentation that I think Councillor Whitaker was saying that there was some documentation that perhaps members wanted to see before they obviously wanted to for the next time if it was deferred. Can you just confirm to me, Councillor Whitaker, which documentation you were actually referring to, so that if and when it obviously goes to the vote, we've got clarification as to what members are actually voting on? Thank you.
Do you want me to? Chair, the report that I'm looking at is the heritage statement in connection with Castle Walks, which describes the site very carefully. There are several paragraphs that have been underlined, which are very important. And I just think members are voting for this. No disrespect to members, but a lot of them don't know where it is, never been there. And I think once people have seen, this is the report that I'll be happy to give to the officer.
Councillor Whitaker, we just wanted to know what the report was, I think. You know, Taz just needed to know what the report was that we needed to look at.
Well, I tried to say that. The heritage statement prepared, and I think if we are of a site visit, it will give members who haven't visited the site a chance to have a look at this report, which I'll not say undermines, but it challenges the officer's report. And I think we're a duty empowered to have a look at that.
Hi, so the document Councillor Whitaker is referring to is the heritage statement, which was submitted as part of the application when it was received in October. That heritage statement has been assessed by our own heritage advisor, and our assessment and recommendations are based on having looked at that document and had it assessed.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to say anything? If not, I'll move to the vote. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I still stand by what I said, but I'm perfectly willing to go on a site visit. Right, thank you.
All those in favour of a site visit, please show. All those against? Abstentions? We go on a site visit.
Through you, Chair. So the matter has been deferred for members to be allowed to go on a site visit. And I think it will be also useful, because I think Councillor Whitaker obviously referred to this, if members are also provided with this heritage statement. And I understand obviously what the planning officer is saying in terms of having been able to obtain the actual heritage advisor, our own heritage advisor's recommendations. But I think it's also quite useful to have that heritage statement available for members at the next committee. Thank you, Chair.
Can we have that statement prior to the site visit, please.
Yeah, through you, Chair. The heritage statement was submitted with the application, so it forms part of the planning file for this application. It is available to view on the council website, as it has been from the outset. So members can access that report at any time. It is there to be able to view publicly. Thanks, Chair.
I wasn't aware it was on the website. I'm just asking so I can read it, you know.
Please, through the chair. It's been a difficult meeting. Don't make it any harder. Aye. Any comments? Say them out loud, don't mumble. Item 3D. Through to 4 Chapel Street, Chorley, pages 79 to 92. Amy's going to present this item. Recommended that planning permission is granted subject to conditions. The registered speaker, I haven't got one. Amy, can you present the report, please?
The site comprises a vacant building previously occupied by a charity shop. It forms part of a terrace of shops located within the primary shopping frontage in Chorley Town Centre. The application seeks planning permission for a change of use of the building from a retail unit to a drinking establishment. Development would involve full internal refurbishment of the building over 2 floors with bar and drinking areas at ground and first floor level. Development is acceptable in principle as it would bring back into use a currently vacant building, and it would not only maintain but also enhance the function, vitality and viability of the primary frontage and the immediate locality. This would be in compliance with policy EP6 of the Chorley local plan. In terms of impact on amenity, the immediate locality contains a diverse range of uses typically found within a town centre location, including several businesses which operate during evening and nighttime hours, including several public houses located along Market Street. A drinking establishment would not therefore be considered to be unusual in this location.
Okay, thank you. We did have a registered speaker, but he hasn't turned up, so nothing we can do. So I've got Councillor Hilton, Councillor G, Councillor Beaver, did you have your hand? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a number of similar applications such as this in the past, probably in more residential areas, and those are examples of inappropriate development in those areas, but this is not a residential area. This is the town centre. It's a sustainable area, and one of the things that we're proud to have done in Chorley is to actually revitalise the town centre, and I think this will be an asset to the town centre as well, so I'm happy to propose officer recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If any members have been down the bottom of Chapel Street, they'll find that it's either 3 or 4 shops that are shut down there. That part of Chapel Street has deteriorated over the last couple of years. This establishment was a charity shop. It will regenerate the area. Hopefully it'll kickstart the rest of the area around there. We do have one shop that's been vacant for many years, the old Greenwood clothes shop. Other buildings around there are being, the Royal Bank of Scotland, that's been regenerated. So yes, it will kickstart that area. It will be, whether you like micro pubs or pubs, it's relevant because the nighttime economy will benefit from it. Chorley will benefit, and so I can't see any problem whatsoever. And some of the objections I thought were a bit weak, but everyone's entitled to it. So I'm happy to second Councillor Hilton's for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this sits within my area, and I was approached by the proposer and the objector to stand for both sides. But the reason why he's not come to speak today is because he's happy with things that are going on. We met last Friday, and the 9 points in paragraph 5 were addressed issue by issue, and the applicant put to rest the objector's mind that each will be addressed and will not be a problem. They're very much looking to work hand in hand, and I agree, it will enhance the area. And to date, subject to the conversation we had on Friday, and he keeps his word, there are no objections. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Chair. I won't keep you too long. He should still have come along and explained and let us hear what improvements and changes you're going to make. I wonder how many drinking establishments Chorley can take, but that's, I suppose, a decision that is taken in terms of business. But I'll be watching how many more we get in future meetings. And the only reason I will vote for it is that I'm glad to see that it doesn't propose that there are any external customer seating areas. And should the owners wish to take place tables and chairs outside the business, they have to get a cafe license. However, in the current situation of COVID, etc., everyone is being allowed to sit outside. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Thank you.
All those in favour of all those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Have I got any against? Any abstentions? Kaz.
Thank you, Chair. Members have decided unanimously to grant planning permission with conditions for the change of use from retail unit to a drinking establishment at 2 to 4 Chapel Street, Chorley. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3E is lands the rear of Brookfield, Alker, Euxton, pages 93 to 120. Update on your addendum. Ian's going to present it. I have no registered speakers. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that that planning permission was recently granted for the erection of 6 buildings comprising employment use classes supporting offices, light industrial, storage and distribution, and general industrial uses on land to the east of Alker Lane at Euxton. The application is being progressed by Chorley Council, and this current application seeks to vary conditions in order to alter the approved site levels and change the details of the acoustic barrier from abundant fence to just an acoustic fence only. The acoustic barrier would remain at 3.3 metres in height, which is as approved, and therefore the level of protection against noise would remain similar. The fence would obviously be taller, and it would be positioned slightly further from the houses in order to avoid tree roots and landscaping. Although the appearance would be slightly more stark, the visual impact would be similar to the previously approved scheme, and it is considered acceptable. The change to the levels would result in a variance of no more than ½ metre, greater or lesser than previously approved. This would have a limited impact on the overall appearance of the development, and together with the changes to the acoustic barrier, there wouldn't be any greater impacts on the amenity of the occupiers of any nearby neighbouring residential properties over and above that, which has already been approved. So overall, it is considered that the proposed amendments to the planning permission are acceptable, and it's recommended that the application is approved subject to conditions and a supplemental Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Over to you, members. Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. This is an important part of that area around that Alker Lane, and I have no problem going for the officer's recommendation. It's something that we need to do. There's not been any complaints from the 2 houses at the bottom of August Lane. They seem to be happy with the way things are progressing, so I'm again happy to go for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor G's proposal, as I think the only thing that could have been said would be the noise, but as set out in paragraph 12 for the environmental health consultation, it says that it would have, that there's no change basically in the height of the barrier, so it have a minimal impact. So that's why I'm happy to second it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Marwood.
I withdraw.
Okay, Taz.
Thank you, Chair. So committee have decided to approve the Section 37 application to vary conditions 2, 6 and 7 attached to Plan Permission 20-00861 in respect of land to the rear of Brookfield, Alker, Euxton, subject to conditions and a supplemental Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Ian's going to present this item. Sorry, I forgot to switch it on. But you can still hear me. That's my trouble. I've no registered speakers. Ian, can you present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the formation of a new temporary vehicular access and the erection of a temporary works compound in addition to remedial engineering works on land adjacent to the A6 and A673 at Heath Charnock. The works are necessary to support the ongoing operation of the Manchester to Preston railway line through the stabilisation of the embankments. Much of the site falls within the Greenbelt and involves engineering operations and the temporary use of the land, both of which are exceptions to inappropriate development within Greenbelt locations, provided that they preserve the openness of the Greenbelt and do not conflict with the purposes of including land within the Greenbelt. The engineering operations to the land and the formation of the access would have no impact on openness or the purposes of including land within the Greenbelt. However, the formation of the compound and its use would result in a visual impact on openness and some encroachment, albeit on a temporary basis. As such, the development would have to be considered inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. In this instance, the compound is required to support engineering operations that are absolutely essential to the continued operation and function of the Manchester to Preston railway line, and this is considered to constitute a very special circumstance sufficient to outweigh the definitional harm to the Greenbelt and any other harm through encroachment. Given the temporary duration and essential nature of the works and supporting access and compound, the impacts on the appearance of the area and residential amenities considered to be acceptable. There'll be no adverse impact on highway safety, and the County Council's highway officer raises no objections. There'll be no unacceptable impacts on ecology, the ecology of conditions at the site, subject to the inclusion of conditions to protect trees and ensure that the land is restored back to its original condition. All issues are covered in detail within the report, and overall the proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. This is important. I can't see how we can refuse this. It's essential work that's needed there. Yes, it's in the Greenbelt. Just one question. When they finish and it all goes away, I presume they'll put the land back to its original way, what it was before. So if that's the way, I'm quite happy to go for the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, that is one of the conditions, that land will need to be restored back to its original condition.
Councillor Heaton.
I'll second the recommendation, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So we often have debates and discussions about appropriate development of the Greenbelt. This is, to me, a perfect example of what perfectly appropriate development of the Greenbelt is. So thank you, Chair.
Daz.
Thank you, Chair. So members have unanimously decided to grant planning permission with conditions in respect to the formation of temporary vehicle access from Chorley Road and erection of temporary compound to facilitate ground stabilisation and remedial works to support the operation railway at Railway Bridge, Chorley Road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 4, the appeals report, pages 147 to 148. Jonathan's going to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. Since the last planning committee, 3 new appeals have been lodged and validated. These relate to the Royal Umpire Caravan Park, Southport Road, Ulners Walton, 170 Wood Lane, Heskin, and Ridley Lane, Maudsley. The details of the schemes are in the report tonight. Since the last committee, 1 appeal decision has been received, which was last week, and that relates to Lower Burway, Chorley, and that results from a recent inquiry where Taylor Wimpey had appealed the decision. The planning inspectorate came down to the decision as appeal allowed, but I do need to stress to members that that is the actual outcome that we did want in this situation. Although the inspectors granted planning permission, this is only on the basis that all of the planning obligations have been met. So we basically got down to the position at the inquiry where only education contributions were the outstanding issue, and the inspector found in our favour that development can only proceed providing all contributions are met, including education, affordable housing, etc. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. Item 5, removal of BT phone boxes, page 149 to 154. And it's Jonathan again.
Thank you, Chair. So when BT look at removing a phone box, they have to go through a set process, which includes consulting with the local planning authority. So they've notified us of 2 proposed phone box removals. So one is outside of 528 Preston Road, Clayton the Woods, and the second one is near Lane End Farm, Pompion Brow, Bretherton. So they've consulted us on that. The expiry date for the consultation is the end of this week, hence bringing it forward to Planning Committee for the decision to be delegated to myself in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair. We've had no particular objections come into this, come through this consultation. You'll note in the appendix that Bretherton Parish Council wished to purchase one of the kiosks once it has been decommissioned, whereas Clayton Woods and Clayton Woods Council agreed not to adopt the telephone box through the Parish Council. So the recommendation is that the final decision at the end of this week is delegated to myself in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, through Chair, that has to be voted on in terms of the actual recommendation. So you need a proposal and a seconder.
I'll propose that, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So members have unanimously agreed to delegate to the Director of Planning and Development in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of Planning to prepare and issue the final notification to BT and the Secretary of State. Thank you, Chair.
We'll get this right yet with these microphones. They will not beat us. And the meeting is now closed. Have a safe journey home.